Every single business out there, whether it's a giant corporation or a tiny startup, has a mystery to solve, a puzzle that, if they can just crack it, could unlock some incredible growth. But how do you even start looking for the clues? Well, today we're going to put on our detective hats and find out.
This right here, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do companies really get inside their customers' heads? Do they just take a wild guess, or maybe spend a fortune on huge, brand-new studies? It turns out there's a much smarter way to begin.
Okay, let's dive into this. A smart detective, a really good one, never starts a new case by just running out onto the streets and asking questions. No way. Their very first move is always to head to the archives to see what case files already exist. And guess what? That exact same principle applies in the world of business. This right here, this is the golden rule of any data investigation. You always start with what's already out there. Why? Well, because starting with existing data, what we call secondary data, is way faster, it's cheaper, and it can often save you from, completely reinventing the wheel. It is absolutely the essential first step.
So, in any investigation, your clues are going to fall into two main categories. And really understanding the difference between them, well, that's the key to solving your case without wasting a ton of time and money. Let's break it down.
So here's the bottom line. Primary data is the stuff you go out and gather yourself. It's custom made for your specific mystery, which is great, but man, it takes time and a whole lot of money. Secondary data, on the other hand, is the information someone else has already done the hard work of gathering. It's fast, it's cheap, and it's just sitting there waiting for you in the archives.
And look, this isn't just a fun metaphor we're using. This is the actual official breakdown researchers use. You don't have to read every single word here, but just glance at the differences in cost and time. See that? Primary data is expensive, and it is slow to get. Secondary data is low cost and fast. This is exactly why every smart investigation starts with what's already in the files.
Okay, so if we're supposed to start with all these existing clues, where in the world are these data archives? Well, it turns out they are absolutely massive, and they're pretty much split into two main wings of a giant library.
Let's just use this chart as our map for a second. As you can see, all secondary data branches out into two big categories. You've got internal data, that's stuff from inside your own organization, and external data, which is all the information from the outside world. We're going to start by digging through the internal files first.
Internal data is basically all the information your company creates just by being in business. It's often the easiest to get your hands on, the most relevant, and for sure the cheapest place to start finding some really powerful insights.
I mean, think about it for a second. Your company already has sales numbers broken down by product or by store. You've got customer lists with all their buying history. You've got notes from the sales team's calls. Heck, you've probably got old research reports just sitting on a server somewhere collecting digital dust. This stuff is a literal treasure trove of clues that so many people just overlook.
All right, let's head over to the other wing of the archive now, external data. This is the massive, sprawling universe of information that exists outside your company's four walls. And let me tell you, this is where things get really big.
The sources here are just vast. We're talking everything from government data like the US Census to all kinds of published guides and massive online databases. There are even these specialized companies called syndicated services. You've probably heard of Nielsen, right? Their entire business is to collect super detailed market data and then sell it. The clues really are everywhere you look.
Okay, so you've been digging through the archives. You found a really promising clue. Case closed, right? Ha, not so fast. Just like any good detective, you have to interrogate your evidence. You've got to make sure it's actually reliable. Asking yourself this question is probably the most important thing a data detective can do. Seriously, because data that was collected for one reason might not be accurate or even relevant for what you need it for. You have to be a little skeptical. So, here it is. This is your 5-point interrogation checklist. For any piece of data you find, you have to ask: 1. What was the motive? Why was this even collected? 2. What were the methods they used? 3. Is it accurate? Can you back it up somewhere else? 4. Check the timeline. Is this data from last week or 10 years ago? And finally, 5. Who is the source? Can you depend on them? Only the data that passes this tough interrogation can be trusted as solid evidence.
Now, I know this can all feel a little bit abstract, so let's look at a real-world case where a major company used these exact same principles to solve a multi-billion-dollar mystery.
Let's talk about Caterpillar, the heavy equipment giant. They had a huge business building these massive engines that go into 18-wheeler trucks, but they had this nagging feeling that they didn't really, truly understand their customers. They needed to crack this case.
And the stakes? They could not have been higher. We're talking about a $2 billion a year business for them. Getting this wrong was just not an option. So what did they do? They didn't launch some massive, new, super expensive research project. Nope. They went to the archives.
And what they did is just a brilliant example of this technique in action. First, they started with their own internal customer data. Then, they started layering on external sources. They pulled in Dun & Bradstreet data to understand how big their customers' businesses were, TRW data for info on their truck fleets, and even used the National Motor Truck Directory. By piecing all these different clues together, they built a complete picture of their market for the very first time.
And the result of all this detective work? It was a complete breakthrough. For the first time, they could see with crystal clarity who their most valuable customers were and exactly what they needed. The investigation was a huge success, and their market share grew by 5%. I mean, that's the power of being a great data detective.
So the real takeaway here is this. Every business has a story hidden in its data, and the smartest ones, they start by reading the chapters that are already written. It's just the fastest, most efficient way to solve a mystery. And that brings up one final thought. Just like Caterpillar investigated its customers, there are countless organizations out there piecing together clues about you every single day. They're reading your data story. The question is, what does it say?